Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm delighted that I've caught your eye in this important budget debate. And I'm also pleased to follow the Honourable Member for Warwick and Leamington, although I have to say I disagree with almost every word that he said. But that being so, that's the nature of this place, Madam Deputy Speaker. We are entitled to debate these matters. But I've listened to members of the opposition's speeches today, and both they and most of the financial commentators that have been criticising the budget, and here is where I totally agree with my honourable friend for Folkestone and Hythe, have failed to mention that we've been through two catastrophic world shocks, namely the pandemic and the unexpected war in Europe, in Ukraine. And these have had catastrophic effects on our economy. And I say to all the honourable members opposite that have been criticising this budget, would they not have spent the money on the furlough scheme? Would they not have spent the money on the business loan scheme? Would they not have helped people out with their energy loans? Of course they would. So they would be in exactly the same place grappling with the economic problems that we've got today as we are. And I have to say, I think there were a number of measures in this budget that are to be warmly welcomed, and I'm going to come on to one or two of them. But I am particularly pleased that inflation has come down from a high of 11.4% to 4% today, and forecast to be below the Bank of England's target of 2% by the end of this year. That is the most important thing we can do for the cost of living for all of our constituents in this country, above all tax reductions or anything else. That is the most important thing we can do. And I warmly welcome that. Now I turn to one of the two of the individual measures in the budget, which I would like to just go through. And then I want to go on to the productivity measures in the public sector. And then inevitably my honourable friends in the front bench will not be surprised to learn that I'm going to mention the tourist tax. So there were a number of things in the budget that my constituents will welcome, particularly the cut in employee insurance contributions, and taken together with those at the autumn statement and yesterday's announcements in the budget. These amount to £900 for the average working person in this country earning £35,000. Now that, I would suggest to everybody across the House, is a significant increase in the amount of take-home money that our constituents will see in their pockets today. And this combined, of course, with the number of our constituents who are self-employed, that is also a particularly important and growing sector, of £650 for the average someone earning £28,000 is also warmly welcome. And this will encourage our hard-working constituents to work longer hours and become more productive. And as the Chancellor said yesterday, my honourable friend the Chancellor said yesterday, national insurance is a double tax on working people. National insurance combined with income tax is an unfair tax arrangement for working people. And therefore it must be right, if we're going to start doing tax cuts, which I hope we will, it must be right to try and drop one or other of them, and that's why I warmly welcome the cut in national insurance. And do you know, the Chancellor mentioned, can I just with this one point, and I hope the honourable gentleman, when he intervenes on me, will consider this point really importantly. The Chancellor said yesterday that through our tax cuts and raising of the personal allowance, the tax on ordinary working people today is at its lowest since 1975, and possibly since the war, although we don't have records to prove that. It is lower than America, France, Germany, or any G7 country. So the ordinary working person's tax burden through national insurance and income tax is extremely low at the present time. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
I thank the honourable member. I mean, on the point on the tax burden, it's clear that it's actually the highest that it's been in 70 years. But my question, he raised the point about national insurance contributions. I assume he's seen the email that the Chancellor of the Exchequer has sent to all Conservative Party members, making it very clear that the plan is to scrap NICs in the next Parliament, does he accept that that is the government's plan because it's in that email in black and white? And does he also accept that that would leave a £46 billion black hole in the public finances?
I think the honourable gentleman is misrepresenting what my right honourable friend the Chancellor said yesterday. I have Hansard here and I can't turn it up quick enough to be able to give him an exact wording of what the Chancellor said, but basically what he said was when the economy was in a fit state to do so and when the economic conditions allowed, it was an ambition, not a promise, not a commitment of anything at all. It's just, as my Honourable says, a commitment of travel. And so I hope, well, I'll give way to the Honourable Gentleman, but I hope he's not going to misrepresent what the Chancellor said, because I'll have to get it in answer. I'll give him one more chance.
As I'm sure he'll be aware, I'm an avid reader of emails that have been sent from the Chancellor to Conservative Party members. He says in it, we want a simpler, fairer tax system where you only pay tax once. If we stick with our plan that's working, we'll be able to make progress towards that goal in the next Parliament. If that's not a commitment to scrapping NICs in the next Parliament, leaving a £46 billion, why don't they just own up to it and then explain how they're going to fill that black hole?
I'm really grateful for the honourable gentleman for intervening me on the second time, because I now have the exact words from Hansard, which I'm going to quote. I'm going to quote back at the honourable gentleman. He said, and I quote, "When it's responsible and when it can be achieved without increasing borrowing and when it can be delivered without compromising high-quality public services, we will continue to cut national insurance as we have done today so that we can truly make work pay." So I don't think it sounds the honourable gentleman saying it too. I think he's misrepresenting the words of my right honourable friend the Chancellor, and I hope that he will not persist in that line of question. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
I think we can all recognise a CHQ rebuttal on its own Chancellor when we hear it. But to be absolutely clear about the substantive point that was made, that the NIC cuts have meant that there's a lot of lower tax burden, we need to be clear for the record that is not correct. This is the highest tax burden since 1948, and he must recognise that the freezing of the personal tax allowance has a significant impact on all taxpayers.
Well, again, I hope that we're not going to have my right honourable friend's ambitious and welcome ambitions to reduce national insurance reduced in the way that it has been. I don't think we will get very far by continuing that argument. But what I was going on to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, because I think you'll probably reprimand me if I get too far down this rabbit hole, was that it's not just workers through reduction in national insurance that are going to benefit from this budget. It is, of course, pensioners as well, because pensioners are going to see a very significant increase in their pension through the triple lock of a huge 8.5% this year. And this, together with the enormous rise in personal income allowance over the years that we've been able to introduce from 8.5% up to 8,500 up to 12,500, will actually see not only those on the basic state pension, but also those earning a little bit of income on top. They will see that our measures have considerably benefited the amount that they receive in their pocket. Moving on to our commitment to families, we recognise the importance of easing financial strain, especially for parents. And I've listened closely today to those constituents in the Cotswolds who have contacted me about how they've had to tighten their purses since the COVID pandemic, when so many found their work interrupted and the cost of food and energy rises in the years following. So people in rural areas will be particularly pleased to see another freeze in a year on fuel duty, because people in rural areas do rely very much on having to use their cars. And I'm also pleased to see that the threshold for higher income child benefit charge has risen from 50,000 to 60,000. This move directly impacts nearly 500,000 families, providing an average boost of £1,300 per household. It's about empowering families and ensuring that every child has support they need to flourish. I also welcome the British ISA of 5,000 investment, should have been more, and I also welcome the incentivisation of UK investment assets rather than hitting savers, we not only bolster economic resilience, but we also pave the way for a brighter future for generations to come. And I welcome the disclosure moves for local government pensions to encourage them too to invest in UK infrastructure projects. Our commitment to families and businesses remains unwavering, from child benefits, just let me finish this paragraph, to increasing VAT registration again from 85 to 90,000. Should have been more, but it will help a number of businesses. And before I come on to my next section in my speech about public sector productivity, I will happily give way to my honourable friend.
And I thank my honourable friend, because I think one of the key measures yesterday, alongside what happened with the autumn statement, was the full expensing on leased assets as well, which will drive up growth. And growth now is in track. And the important thing, of course, is as a percentage of GDP, business investment now will be the highest it's been for many years, and substantially higher in the whole time that the Labour Party was in power.
My honourable friend is entirely right. That £10 billion announcement that my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, made in his autumn statement of full business expensing was one of the most important economic announcements in this entire Conservative government. And the trying to address the problem that my honourable friend has just asked me about there in terms of leasing is contained in the Red Book, and it's a really important piece that he's now looking at. So I welcome the intervention from my honourable friend. Now I want to come on to public sector productivity. And I think what I'd like to do before I just to put that into context, paragraph 2.14 in the Red Book is one of the most important paragraphs in that Red Book, because what it says is that over the next 25 years, growth will be at 1.7%, but spending will be at 2.5%. Now that is unsustainable. And every government in the next 25 years is going to have to address that. And when average growth is 1.7% and health spending in modern civilised countries like ours is growing at 4%, that too is unsustainable. So we have to do something about addressing public sector productivity. Now, in my role as Deputy Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, one of the quickest and easiest things to do about that is to increase the use of digital methods. And it is quite clear from our visit, the PAC's visit, to Denmark, for example, the Danes have all of their health service properly digitalised, and they are a long way ahead of the NHS. Everything from booking patients' appointments through to their experience in hospitals, procurement of all the equipment and medicines in hospitals, everything to do with the health service is digitalised, and it works incredibly efficiently. And that is why I welcome the £3.4 billion in NHS digitalisation, because I think that sort of investment in productivity can yield huge dividends in future outputs. And it isn't just in the health service where digitalisation can make an effect. My right honourable friend, the member for the Secretary for Communities and Levelling Up, is currently consulting on a relatively small investment in the planning system digitalisation. Now, every business everywhere wanting to do anything complains about the slowness of the planning system. And they complain because local authorities haven't got enough planning officers. But actually this digitalisation, cutting some of the bureaucracy for planning officers, allowing them to make better and quicker decisions, will help that productivity enormously and will have a huge knock-on effect for businesses. I would now like to turn, as I promised my honourable friend on the front bench, and he will be very disappointed if I didn't mention this, and it was a disappointment in yesterday's budget that there was no mention at all, or very little mention. There is a small mention in the Red Book, and there is a separate report produced by the OBR, which I'm coming on to in a minute. So basically, in his autumn statement, my Right Honourable Chancellor said in an intervention, I think to me, when we changed policy on this particular issue a year ago, it was because the cost was around £2.5 billion to the Treasury, and we didn't think we could afford to continue doing it. And he went on to say, but we are looking again at the numbers in the light of the most recent data, and we can see what's happened to comparative shops in Paris, Milan and Madrid. We will review that and see if it's still that expensive, and I hope it isn't. So can I ask my right honourable friend on the front bench, yesterday's OBR review was not a full review. All they did was to review their very limited forecast of 2020 on their own figures, with no reference to how badly the UK is performing relatively to our continental competitors. And the OBR made no mention of the costs and benefits of the Exchequer of extending the scheme to EU visitors. And the OBR has never been asked to look at that. And I do just, I do actually give government credit where credit's due. We have a new doctrine in the OBR, if I can turn it up quite quickly in Hansard, and it's this. Excuse me, Madam Speaker, I'll get it in a second, but this is really important, and it really starts to address some of the points my right honourable friend from Christchurch was making. And if the House will bear with me when I just quote Hansard again, the higher 28% rate that exists for residential property, we would in fact increase revenues because that would be more transactions. For the first time in history, both the Treasury and the OBR have discovered the inner Laffer. Now, if they can do it for the cut in capital gains tax, I say to them, why can't they do it for in reintroduction of the tourist tax? And I'm just going to acquaint the House with one or two figures, please, because I think I have some of the actual figures that's going on in the real world economy at the moment, and I don't think, if my right honourable friend will bear with me, I'm not sure the Treasury is truly taking these figures into account. And when he hears the figures, and the House hears the figures, I think they will begin to think that this is really something we ought to be investing in. Firstly, let me refer to the two independent reports that were made, one of which was the Oxford, well-respected and well-renowned Oxford forecasting, and they predict that reinstoring the VAT res, or the colloquial tourist tax, could increase GDP, they say, by 6 billion. Another report predicted 7 billion. So this is huge stuff that we are dealing with here, a huge potential benefit. And I cannot see why the government won't at least do a proper study into it. Because what we know from our figures is that British businesses lost out by £1.5 billion in 2022 and even more in 2023. And it would benefit many of our big retail shops, hospitality venues, airports and cultural destinations, and particularly areas of high tourist destinations like the Cotswolds. It also shows that Britain is losing out on a 10 billion EU market, and that the Exchequer would receive a net benefit from that of 500 million alone in VAT. The figures on how we are compared to our competitors is absolutely stark. In 2022, spending by American visitors in Britain was at 101%. This is in Britain, 101% of the pre-COVID level of 2019. But guess what? In France, it was 226. In Spain, it was 206. And in Italy, it was 190% of pre-COVID levels compared to our level pegging pre-COVID. This really is really big stuff, and I cannot understand why the Treasury won't study this properly. In 2022, spending by visitors from the GCC states in Britain was only at 65% of 2022 levels, but in France it was 198%, Spain 158%, and Italy 166%. Not my figures, Madam Deputy Speaker, figures from real traders that are given the Association of International Retail. They are actual figures audited from their books. These are not made-up figures. So could I suggest, gently, that the Chancellor and industry would fund it if necessary, jointly commission a proper independent study into the full impact of tax-free shopping on British businesses, the economy and the Exchequer, so that we can have a real evidence-based decision on making this huge and important decision. And will you meet with me and industry representatives to discuss this further? So I'm delighted, Madam Deputy Speaker, in summing up, that we've seen an inflation fall from 11.1 to 4%. The wages are rising, mortgage rates are starting to fall, and interest rates will hopefully fall towards the latter end of this year. It's been a tough few years. Pandemics and wars have caused economic strain which few countries have managed to avoid. I was vocal last year on the rising cost of energy and food prices, which are a regressive cost hitting low earners the most. I am pleased now to see the cost of living easing.
The people of the Cotswolds want to see their hard work pay. The innovation of small and medium-sized businesses encouraged, and public services as our school and the NHS well-funded but efficiently operating. But these services can only improve if our economy is strong and thriving and the UK is seen as the best place to do business. And that is why I'm so pleased that in my Right Honourable Friend the Chancellor's budget yesterday, there are so many world-leading sectors, the creative economy, unicorns, AI, financial sector, pharmaceutical. There are so many sectors in this country which we have much to be proud of. And the Chancellor has done a lot yesterday to encourage every single one of these businesses in the country with their innovation and energy, and I commend his budget.
Before